Hey there, here's the exact guitar and bass chain I used to get that crushing Thall horror metal tone on my Halloween rescore. If you want your riffs to sound like a horror movie on steroids, you're in the right place. I've started from my Schecter Sunset Extreme 7th string in drop G sharp and used the transpose function in Archetype Gojira X to drop it to drop E. I'm using M3, these are the settings, also using the second cab with those microphones. I use the wah pedal for some whammy automation during my riffs. A bit of overdrive. For the later part of the score I used wham, which is a whammy VST, just to tune it down again to drop C. So that's getting really low. On my guitar bus I have a multiband compressor just to control the low end. Then I EQ'd everything with Pro Q3, just getting rid of some harsh frequencies and some nasty high end, which doesn't really fit with the Thall genre. Just tightening the guitar a bit more. After that, I'm using a compressor with a lot of gain reduction and setting the mix to 13%, which is not a lot, but it really adds a lot of thickness to the guitars. Also tightening them a bit more. Then I experimented with JST Transify and really added a lot of attack on the high mids. Pay attention to the low notes to really see what it does. Really helps getting more aggression out of the guitars in the mix. Then I'm using another compressor just to tame the high peaks and also limiting the guitars. That really helps to get them the more consistent possible in the mix while retaining some clarity. Then I need to show you the recorded tracks for those next plugins. I'm using Side Widener from JST to widen the guitars on the stereo. So here they are in the full mix. I'm going to toggle the plugin on and off, starting with off. It's subtle, but it helps with the bass and the kick. Then I'm using Ozone Imager, but this time not to enlarge the stereo, but to reduce it. I'm really just using it on the peak scrape right there. Pay attention to the slider right there. It was really to play with the mono and stereo spread for that part of the riff. Then I'm using the gain plugin just for some volume automation, especially on the same pick scrape, just to bring it more in front of the mix and also to raise the volume on the guitar in the end. Then we're going to find Roam just to add some ambience on this part right there. I automated the mix knob just for that. And finally, I use Track Spacer just to give more space to the kick with the guitars because they are really low and the kick was just buried a bit more in everything, especially in the end of the scene. And I also used the same setting for Track Spacer on the bass and some production layers because the mix was starting to get really dense at this point. However, in metal, a good guitar tone is nothing without its bass counterpart. So I'm using my Ibanez SR305e. It's tuned to standard and drop A, but I'm really using the E string. Here the tone is composed of two layers. There is the subtrack. It starts with a low pass at 192. Then I added a compressor to really control the low end. A bit more of compressing with finality. It was really to control the really low notes. And in the end, I'm also playing lower on the 5th string, just to keep everything consistent. Then, since it was a bit weak in the mix, I added some distortion with JST Heat. is really to add a bit more of harmonic content to the really low notes. And then to be sure that everything was at the more consistent level possible in the low end, I added low control. And to complement the sub track, I have a distorted track for the bass. I'm putting the bass through Archetype Gojira. Same amp head cab as the guitars. I really did a lot of EQing in the plugin. And then I added another EQ to really carve the frequencies I didn't need in the mix. So both tracks sounds like that. I use supercharger to compress the bass even more and adding a bit more of saturation. And it's mixed like at 73%. Then there is a bit more of EQ. And as I said before, I also use track spacer just to carve some place for the low end of the kick. And when you put the guitars and the bass together, that sounds like that. And that's the full signal chain for my Thall Horror Metal Rescore. You can hear it in action in my Halloween Kills Rescore right here. And if you're curious, you can also check the full production in this video. Smash the like button if that helped, subscribe for more gear and production breakdowns. And if you want your tracks produced or mixed with this level of brutality, hit up tbsounds.com. Thank you so much for watching, I'll see you next time.